So good morning, everyone. My name is Myklebust, as you just heard. So really excited to be here. This is my first live conference in nearly 3 years. So super happy to be here, and also super happy to discover Bratislava as a city. So I am a senior solutions architect at Red Hat. I work primarily with Accenture as my main partner. And I know Accenture very well because I used to be Accenture. I was Accenture for almost 10 years, and I was working in the Accenture IBM Red Hat business group as a EMEA technology lead. And I was also the lead technology architect on the Accenture Cloud Innovation Center, or ACIC, which we're going to talk about today also. Live in France, 2 small boys, my wife. But enough about me. Over to my co-presenter, Usman.
So my name is Usman. I've been working in the IT industry for nearly 15 years. I have joined Accenture a year ago, where I've stepped into the footstep of my former colleague, Myklebust, as the lead architect and technical lead of the ACIC Navan. In my day-to-day life, I live in Copenhagen in Denmark with my wife and 2 kids. So what we're going to present to you today is going to be what our team has been working on for the last 2 years and more. And Jan, would you please go through the agenda?
Yep, really quickly. So glimpse of what we're going to talk about today. So it's going to be a mix of live demos and also a few slides, obviously, to introduce the context. So we're going to talk to you about what the ACIC Navan, so Accenture Cloud Innovation Center, Navigate Anywhere platform is, show you the reference architecture. Then we're going to show you live what it actually looks like. Then we're going to shift our focus slightly towards sovereign cloud and a specific story we were faced with a client use case. We're going to explain to you the workflow, the architecture of this use case, as well as a demo, and we're going to wrap it up with a call to action.
All right. So a little bit about who we are. So we are an international team all across Accenture. We have people from all over Europe, but also other parts of the world. And it is something where we're not showing everyone who has been part of our team or is currently part of it, but this is just a small section of the people who have been working very hard to bring this solution up to date. It is something where we are using this not only as a way to present something to clients, but also to make sure that within Accenture there is a knowledge about this kind of technology and being able to train more people on top of this platform. Over to you, Jan.
And we even have a blimp, as you can see on the picture there. So pretty cool. So quick word about the Accenture Cloud Innovation Centers, the ACICs. Note that there are 2 of them in Accenture, one in Rome, one in Zurich. They are more or less similar in nature with a few differences, but mainly we're here to talk about the one in Zurich. And in real life, in essence, these are real multi-hybrid cloud environments that help drive innovation on several fronts for joint client opportunities. What does that exactly mean? So first of all, you can actually order innovation environments on demand. So you can actually go and get OpenShift, Red Hat's container platform, on top of any infrastructure across multi-hybrid cloud with DevOps tools to enable you to quickly develop, deploy your applications. And this is a cost-efficient approach we thought of to really help in client engagements to do MVPs, POCs, MVPs, right? This is an environment that is not aimed for client workloads. It is a showcase testing development environment. The second piece is being able to actually look at our service catalog. There's a ton of demos, live demos, videos, etc., of use cases around AI ops, edge, etc., you name it. So you can actually come to us and request those items as they make sense through your client engagements. There's also a dimension around collaboration and co-creation. So whenever the standard services of the ACIC do not match your use case requirements, you can come to the ACIC team, you can discuss with us, you can present your business case, your technical use case, your design, and if we see it's a good fit, we can actually provide you with the platform, the tools, the hosting grounds, operate it for you as you then develop it and show it to your customers. And the last piece is the enterprise-ready reference architecture. So obviously, as I mentioned, this is a hybrid multi-cloud environment with, we'll get into the architecture later, but this is a vendor-agnostic composable architecture, blueprint, if you will, that you can reuse in client engagements. We've actually had many clients come to us wanting to reproduce bits and parts of this setup or the entire setup, or wanting to understand how to operate it.
So what does it take to actually build such a thing? It's not a simple task or one that is quickly done. It took Accenture's expert alongside a lot of partner help like Red Hat and other vendors to build this, and it took more than 18 months of work, took more than 2 million euros in manpower hours and investments in infrastructure. And it is something that is very much a collaboration use case based on various technologies, heavily based on Red Hat, but we also have things like ServiceNow, Splunk, and other technologies that we've involved in this project. With this said and this in mind, this is something that we can then go to our clients and say, you don't have to put in this much effort and time to design your journey to your modern hybrid cloud solution. Instead, let us use our investment, our blueprints to accelerate your journey and save you a year's worth of investment, as well as needing to train up your people in the base skill.
So enough about numbers and slides. Let's look at something that's a bit more technical, the reference architecture. So as mentioned, it's a hybrid multi-cloud environment, as you can see here, and it's accessible for Accenture employees only at this time, but any Accenture employee across the world. And if we take a little bit of a look at what's under the covers, so we have hardware in a data center on premises in Zurich, actually, where we have a private cloud implementation that is based on Red Hat OpenStack. We have legacy virtualization that is represented by VMware. We have bare metal servers as well, of course. And we have software-defined storage using Red Hat Ceph, or IBM Ceph soon. And this is also tied to multiple public cloud accounts. So accounts that are provided to us by Accenture Cloud Platform. And those are securely connected through the cloud exchange provided by the data center provider. So leased lines, if you will, in other words. On top of this, you have Red Hat's container platform, Red Hat OpenShift. So that is more or less our common fabric that brings to life the open hybrid cloud vision of Red Hat. So we have OpenShift in almost any declination possible in here. So on top of all the providers you see here, and for different purposes, whether it's development purposes, testing purposes internally to the ACIC team, whether it is for showcase purposes, to show demos, etc., to client teams, or whether it is for Accenture people to consume for their own development or training purposes. Everything is strictly controlled and managed by the centralized cloud control plane. So that's the box on the left-hand side, which embeds several key technologies. So things like Ansible automation platform, you have Red Hat Advanced Cluster Manager, IBM Cloud Pak for multi-cloud management, domain controllers, etc. So all of this to give us strong control over the lifecycle of our infrastructure, our applications, as well as visibility and security and compliance. Lastly, on top of this, you'll find different things, so applications that are running for our internal purposes, use cases, the setups for our AI ops use cases, for example. You have monitoring capabilities that Usman mentioned around Splunk, Thanos for multi-cluster observability also, and other DevOps tools, pipelines that are ready to use for you. Everything is accessed through the ServiceNow portal, as we mentioned, which we'll be showing you in a second. And the last piece I'll mention is we have an operations team that is actually running this according to a specific operation model with SLAs, SLOs, and leveraging best practices from an SRE standpoint.
Right. Before we go into the demo, let's look at a little bit into what kind of flow we're dealing with. So how does it actually work? What happens is that a cloud team comes to our portal, which is based on ServiceNow, puts in their various informations, types in what kind of project they want, what kind of infrastructure they want to target, puts that in, fill out the form, submit, and that will actually trigger a number of automation jobs. Our main automation engine is working on Ansible, where while it says Ansible Tower, we've actually moved on to the newer version of Ansible Automation Platform. And what it will do is it will ready an infrastructure deployment, depending on where you selected it. It won't just give you an OpenShift cluster. No, we've actually enhanced it a little bit by actually adding in some build pipelines to get developers up and running quicker. They can either use them directly to pull their code and build into the cluster, or they can use that as an example to build their own more advanced pipelines if they would like to. Furthermore, we have chosen a couple of applications that we believe are the most used applications for developers in regards to various DevOps purposes, like SonarQube, Selenium, Jenkins, and others, which we deploy alongside our initial deployment. This is something that we do have a plan of more customizing so that it can be selected on our self-service portal. So that's the art of the possible, is to make sure that you can actually offer your clients more customizable deployments of your infrastructure. Finally, we use observability tools. Right here, we have named Splunk as our main observability tool, but we also use the features that are inherent in advanced cluster management to observe our clusters. We use other types of tools that might be known to you, like Zabbix or other tools like Nagios and so on. And it's all something that we in the Cloud Innovation Center are willing to work as a collaboration use case with other partners or teams within Accenture. All right, then. Now to move on to the actual live demo. And so I am not showing anything anymore, unfortunately. So let's see if we can get the screen up and running again. Can we get the screen up? Thank you. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. So what we're dealing with here is the page that we make available for the rest of Accenture. This is based on our self-service portal ServiceNow, where we've implemented this. And here we have various things that people can access, everything from a video telling about our vision to being able to go in and fill out a form for making a discovery workshop if you want to do something a little bit more elaborate with us, as well as getting help. But what we're going to focus on here in the live demo is actually to see how we actually can provision a project. Yes. So this is our page to actually provision your OpenShift cluster. As you can see here, I've actually already provisioned a couple of them. These are the ones that I own. I could also be part of a project where I'm not the owner, and it would say someone else's name here, and if they've added me to the project. So it's a very simple process. You just simply go to create a new project. You fill out the name. So here I would type Open Java 22. Since I'm already registered to the system, it has put me as the owner. I've added in my GitHub repository so that it can actually give me access to a new GitHub repository that we make available for our users so that they can put in their code there. But of course, that's something that you don't have to do, and you can simply use your own instead. I'll put in a quick little description. The next couple of fields are very much Accenture-centric. So these are like opportunity ID, where we can track our client engagements if this has anything to do with a client opportunity. I'll just fill that out for now, as well as who the client is. Then if I want to, I can actually add in members to who has access to this project. So I can actually give access to some of my team members. And they should also have access on their page on this project. The final couple of fields, use cases, is when we are, this is still a work in progress. So whenever we're doing use case collaborations with the rest of Accenture or with a client, and they want to make this freely available for the rest of Accenture or our other clients, we will be able to display that here and actually pre-select that for deployment. This is still a work in progress, so I unfortunately do not have anything to show there. However, I can go directly to which cloud type I want. So I can select between private and public cloud, and we have targeted the most used infrastructure in the world, like AWS, Azure, and GCP, but we've also done a couple of use cases with some of the minor hyperscalers like Alibaba, Oracle, IBM Cloud, and a couple of more European-based to be able to handle more sovereign cases. For now, I want to use our private cloud, where we have currently implemented on VMware and OpenStack. We can ensure that our project is confidential by default, or if it's something that we want to share with the rest of our user base, we can change this mark and actually make this available for everyone else within Accenture. And of course, we don't want everyone who has access to this page to simply provision 100,000 clusters, because then that would ruin the project. So we ensure that there is actually a little bit of control. You actually have to select a subscription model, as well as put in a charge code, and a charge code within Accenture is called a VBS. And that is also something we advise our clients, saying, make sure that you can actually charge whatever development team is provisioning this at your infrastructure, or else you will have a huge bill. And finally, I confirm this and create this project. So what will happen here is it will start provisioning our project. It will take a couple of minutes within our private infrastructure. It might take 1 to 2 hours in our public cloud. And this has to do with that we are actually cheating a little bit on our private infrastructure, where we're not actually provisioning a full-scale new cluster, but simply providing namespaces in our existing cluster. This has more to do with the limitation of the hardware that we have within our private data center, but it's easily remedied by actually being able to, if we had more hardware, we could actually just push more clusters to that if we wanted to. Now, while we wait for that to finish up, I'll just go to a pre-made project and show you what it is that we actually give access to once a cluster is provisioned. So first of all, you can see that we have something called Quay. This is a freely available image repository. So any containerized images that you create, you can push to Quay and store them there. We have a link to your OpenShift cluster that we have made available to you, depending on whichever platform you've chosen. And finally, we have something like Code Ready, which is a nice to have web-based IDE that is hosted in your cluster. It's something I say is always nice to have, because most serious development teams already have installed their IDE on their local environment. However, if you want to quickly onboard people to your projects who might be externals, or who might just need to get up and running before having their own company laptop set up, then you can offer them a web-based code IDE. So what I want to show you next is the OpenShift console itself. What we do is we provide a couple of namespaces whenever we are provisioning a new cluster. We provide a project namespace where you can deploy all your own code. We deploy a DevOps namespace where, as mentioned before, we deploy a couple of mostly used development tools like Selenium, SonarQube, Jenkins, as well as a documentation part where you can go in and read a little bit more about the project and how to use that. And finally, to get developers up and running as quick as possible, we make sure that in your project namespace, we've actually provided you with a couple of pipelines that you can actually readily use right away, or you can take inspiration from them and actually develop your own. So if we take an example pipeline here, you can see this is built in Tecton. What we do here is we provide you with a pipeline that will clone your repo, run a code analysis using SonarQube to look for static errors as well as security errors, build and push it to your Quay repository, and then deploy to your cluster. So these are just a little bit of extras that we put into the default OpenShift cluster. Now, let's go back to a little bit of our presentation. This was what we actually offer as our base offering within Accenture, and also what we show to the client is this is something that you can offer to your users.
Okay. Then let's shift our focus a little bit to sovereign cloud. So I'm sure a lot of you, if not most of you, have heard of sovereign cloud. It's been in the news, it's been in the media, pretty much in the EU lately. But just for clarity's sake, a simple definition that I like is sovereign cloud is an approach for customers to control location, access to, and processing of their data in a cloud environment. And why? Well, simply in response to regulations, rules, to be compliant with those regulations and rules that are being put in place. You might have heard of things like Gaia X, the Schrems course cases, that actually force customers to take a hard look and understand what are the impacts of using services from, for example, American hyperscalers. That's a reality that a lot of customers are facing today in industries like health and public service, financial services. So in essence, these customers, for them, it's essential to have a hybrid cloud strategy. So being able to have a strategy that enables them to use public hyperscaler features in compliance with those regulations, but also it's vital for them to have an exit strategy, to be able to migrate back their applications, their data, to certified cloud providers that are compliant with these regulations. So that's in essence, why sovereign cloud is important. It is a very moving landscape that's changing every day. Regulations aren't clear. They vary and change in between countries, but it is a reality that we are faced with today. So let's take a look at a case that we were actually faced with, and Usman's going to tell you a little bit more.
So we had a health and public sector client who had a fishing permit license application that they are hosting in a public cloud, GCP in this case. They were worried about, well, once if they get drawn into court and they might be in contrast with the regulations about storing private data or even using an application on a hyperscaler from the US due to different reasons where they could have to deliver information to their American court system. They wanted a solution where they would be able to have an exit strategy as well as being able to run their application just as they are doing on the public cloud. So we helped them build a solution where it was that they could seamlessly move from one cloud to the other, so from Google platform to their on-prem data center. It had to be something that could be done quickly, and it had to be something that was easily manageable. So it didn't need to require tons of hours of work, tons of people having to do this. So we provided them a solution using a single pane of glass, using Red Hat Advanced Cluster Management as our main tool to manage your clusters. Since we're basing our implementation on running on OpenShift, it was very simple because as using OpenShift both at Google as well as on private cloud gave us a common platform to deploy our code to. A little caveat, of course, there are a couple of things that you always have to do that are a little bit different depending on if you're using a service from a hyperscaler. In our case, the client was using something like Google Chatbot. And that's, of course, something that they should not use if they're hit by any regulation demands where you're not allowed to use services from an American public cloud provider. So they also had to do a little bit of code change where they were not allowed to use the same Google Chatbot in their on-prem solution. Right. This is just an overview of the applications. It's a very simple web-based application. It has a front end using the most commonly used JSF and so on, and it has a back-end application all connected to a Postgres database, which will take in all the user data and store that. Of course, doing that would also require us to move the data from one cloud to another. So we decided to just store the data on our on-prem data center solution. But of course, this is something that could have been developed or we're also shifting data. Right. To give you a quick overview of how this actually works, we are using Advanced Cluster Management's placement rules to make sure that we are in control of where the application is running at all times. So to begin with, we're running this on our public cloud provider, GCP, and with a simple change of placement rules, we can then shift our application to run on our private cloud instead, without having to use the Google chatbot. Now then, to actually showcase this, I have a small demo prepared. And let's take a quick look at what's going on. So first, I want to show you the Advanced Cluster Manager tool, where hopefully you can see here that the application, and it's a little bit difficult for me to zoom in here, but if you can see here, then the cluster is deployed on GCP. Hopefully everyone can read this. It's very small. And if I actually go into the specific OpenShift cluster that is hosted on GCP, we should see the application running there. And to verify that this is the GCP cluster, up here in the URL, there is a small GCP 6, or just GCP here, that tells us about this cluster. Beyond that, we also have an on-prem cluster. This is called, in our namespaces, dev2. Right now, it doesn't have any resources because we're not running our application there. What we have as an application, I'll just show you the front end, is in German, your front end to actually be able to apply for a phishing license. I can also show you the version that's running on-prem, and just notice that this is running on GCP 6. Our on-prem is on dev2, where it's not running current. Now then, we're suddenly hit by our strict regulation demand. And before I show that, I almost forgot. There's, of course, also the Google chatbot, which we would need to remove once we're in the private cloud. So let's actually do this little exercise. And normally this would be something where I would recommend don't do this by hand. Make sure you have an automation script that handles this, so it's very much a one-click solution. But for illustrating how this actually works, we're actually doing this by hand. So going to the editor, what I'm going to do is a couple of simple steps. First of all, I just need to make sure that I'm pre-selecting the correct application. I want to shift branches because I have a branch just made for on-prem where I'm making sure that I'm removing the Google chatbot functionality. And let's see, I'm changing the target from GCP to on-prem. Then I'm running my update. Yes. And I'm also running a quick little sync between the Advanced Cluster Manager and the clusters themselves. All right, then. Let's take a look and see if anything has changed in our topology view in our two different clusters. So first, let me go to our GCP cluster. You can see there is no resources left there. We have removed them from our GCP cluster. If we then go to our on-prem cluster, you can see that it's starting to spin up there. I can see that we have a small error, so what I can do is really quickly just delete this. I might have deleted the deployment itself, so that might have been a mistake. But for illustration purposes, let's just take a look at our GCP cluster and see if the application is still running. It's no longer there. And well, I might have screwed up this little demo, but let's take a quick look. If not, then let's see if I can just simply redeploy it.
That's the effect of live demo.
Okay. And let me just redo that exercise. Of course, it's taking a little bit longer than I had hoped. Let me just check if it has been deployed on the devs2 stack. It is currently doing that. So let's see. All right then. While we wait for this, let's just move on real quick. But as you see, every time we do this live demo, there's always a little bit of surprise. So hopefully before we wrap this up, the demo will have loaded. So I'll just jump back to our little presentation.
So just quickly, we want to wrap it up. And well, the effect of live demos is always a jinx. Unfortunately, it didn't go completely as planned, but this usually works very well. And as you can see, I mean, we can migrate applications and all its components in a matter of minutes, to be honest. But we invite you in any case to come seek us out if you're interested in the ACIC. If you want to know more about it, what you can consume if you are from Accenture or if you are a partner or student. You can try out, as we said, OpenShift completely for free for 30 days at least. If you have ideas as to use cases that can make sense for you, collaboration use cases, you can also, of course, seek us out. And if you have any questions about Red Hat, anything we do at Red Hat, then we have a stand out there. Come and check us out. We have some cool gear, actually, speakers, charging banks and everything. So first come, first served. And with that, we'll leave it for questions. Are there any questions? So when you said you're providing namespaces in your installation, what is customer requiring their dedicated hardware? Okay, so the customer doesn't need to bring any hardware at this point. All the hardware is provided by the ASIC, so to say. What's being provided is either on premises as part of existing OpenShift clusters, select namespaces with network policies, RBAC in place, etc., and specific tools so you can start developing. And that's, as Usman said, just because we are not AWS or Google. We don't have limited data center capacity. But in public cloud, it's a bit different. Then we provide an entire OpenShift cluster that's actually being pre-created in an isolated environment. And you have full rights on this cluster to do more or less anything you want as a developer. Hopefully that answers the first. So are you providing GPU-backed installation? No, not at this time. That may be something that could come on the roadmap at some point, but it's not in the immediate roadmap. Any other questions? One more. Are security scans part of the pipeline?
We do use SonarQube to help us do a little bit of security scanning on the pipelines. it is something that we would like to expand upon us as well to do a little bit more rigorously. But we do provide the basis of that so that you can use SonarQube for that. For more specific security scans, it would really depend on the project itself. So depending on what kind of code base you're running, what kind of architecture specifically that you want to put in, this is something we can collaborate with you on to actually build. All right, and any further questions?
Sounds like it's a wrap.
So let's just see if this actually worked. Unfortunately, not. But this is how sometimes it goes with live demos. Sometimes something in the background breaks and you have to figure out, hey, is this something we can do right here and now, or is it something that we can simply showcase at another time? All right then. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, guys.